folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk 1210. Check us out on the Power Talk app and tune in live on Power Talk. And we are honored to have you on the program today. And my guest, without further ado, is one of the greatest American composers and conductors in our country's history. Bill Conti, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thank you, Jake. I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really just, it's an honor to connect with you. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the kind of music that your folks raised you on. Were they outside the box, or was it a lot of classical music? Could you talk about the influence they had on you?
Well, my father was a musician. My grandfather was a musician. So it was pretty straight down the road of classical. Now, he played in nightclubs too, so it's not that he didn't know jazz. So he played jazz, and Italian opera was a big deal. So you put all those in a gumbo, and you come out liking just about everything. I don't know about the pop stuff, but jazz and classical music for sure, and but not so much the popular stuff.
Sure. No, I think that what I'm trying to get at, I would love you to talk a little bit about, did he ever come home and talk to you about, he used to play in jazz clubs? What instrument?
Yeah. In other words, the grandfather played trumpet. He came from Italy. He did other things to work, but he was a trumpet player. And my father was a pianist. He actually graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design, so it was a kind of an artistic type family, but he was a musician. He was a trained pianist, and he taught music. He was prepared for the concert stage, but when he came back from in the Second World War, he began playing in nightclubs. So he played jazz with Bobby Hackett, is a name from back in his day that he worked with, who was a cornet player. He was a very good for his day. Played with Jack Teagarden, some of those old Dixieland bands. And if you remember, or if you're old enough to remember, Music for Lovers Only by Jackie Gleason.
Right.
Back in those days, Bobby Hackett was the trumpet soloist. So my father was a musician all his life. He died young. He died in his 50s. And I was brought up in music. I don't think he wanted me to be in music, but it wasn't one of those, oh, you better not. He realized, I think, that it was a hard road to be in, but I grew up in it, and I just kind of matriculated in it. I didn't think it was anything special. I mean, I practiced every day. I played in saloons from 14 years old to 28 years old. I played in saloons, but also got degrees. I ended up with 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and a doctorate in music. So none of that means anything outside of academia, whether you have any degrees. But I did what he wanted me to just max out,
Absolutely.
Just try to be the best you could be, and I gave it my best shot.
Could you talk about early in your career, could have been playing career, or even as a producer of music for films? How did you learn to create dynamics in the music? I mean, I feel like in pop music today, there are no dynamics. You go back to pop music of the early 70s, even the late 60s, you had rock with jazz changes. A lot of your film scores are the same way. Lots of dynamics, lots of emotive qualities. We came in with Gonna Fly Now. How can you account for how you learned how to create dynamics in music?
Well, for me, the dramatic music was the hook, meaning the difference between what's called abstract music, a string quartet of any Haydn, Mozart, anyone, even a symphony, and then there's the kind of music that, beginning with Liszt and Wagner, and in that period of the mid-19th century of tone poems and symphonic music that told a story, and divided music between the abstract music and that kind of storytelling, tone poemy stuff. But from the very beginning, there was always dramatic music being told in the form of operas or mystery plays or a story that's being told with music. And that stuff, even as a young kid, always hooked me. I always got an emotion out of the operas that I was taken to, the music that I heard from those operas, or from the music of Wagner or Liszt, any of those great dramatic stuff. So by the time I come to realize that if you want to get paid to write dramatic music, not to write string quartets and not to write, I mean, you can do that. But for me, I wanted to get paid to write dramatic music. So that only left you film and television. Now, you could be a dramatic composer of opera today. John Adams is one that comes to mind, who is a wonderful composer of opera, among other things. But I don't know that he's rich. And I wanted to get rich, too. I wanted to be
you didn't want to be a starving genius. You didn't want to be a starving genius.
Well, think about the periods of music that to make my point, there's the Baroque period, that's Bach and those guys. They worked for churches, they worked for kings and princesses. Then there's the classical music period, that's Mozart and Haydn, and they also worked for kings. And then when we get to romantic music, Beethoven and all those guys, they became the artist, and they worked because I feel this, I feel that. But I wanted to be the guy that says, I need a pound of music, and I'll give you $1 for a pound of music. That's like the Prince saying to Mozart, I need a string quartet, I got a guy coming to dinner. Well, the Baroque composer, Bach, who wrote in the church, he had Mass every Sunday, he wrote. So I said, I like that. In other words, people are going to pay me to write music, and they're going to pay me to write dramatic music. So I don't even have a choice. I got to be in film and television, and I might not be like the great composers, but I am a composer, and I'm getting paid to do it. So I figured out I should be a film or a TV composer.
Can you talk to the audience? Some of my show delves into the metaphysical, and because you've bordered on being a conductor, a composer, a player, can you talk about an experience in your career on the bandstand in any one of those capacities where you transcended and left your physical body because of the music?
Well, the idea of oneness, which is a spiritual thing of oneness, and you can put it into any religion you want, meaning the universe, the Godhead, Jesus, whatever people do to become one with the universe, that kind of thinking, right, that kind of stuff, I'm going to say art predates religion. So to get a grasp of it, the very first guy that expressed himself on a cave by doing paintings, I think it predated speech too. Mm-hmm. It certainly predated written speech. What I'm getting at is art is this expression of the divine or becoming one with something. So all of art is like that. From the very beginning, in the history of man is going to tell you that art was there 40,000 years before man even spoke a word, or let alone wrote it down. So, to practice an instrument, you want to become a guitar player. Okay, so you buy a guitar. And then, you got to practice. Now, you have to practice. That's called meditation. People that meditate, they hear the bell, they see the light, they go into the oneness, to become one with all of that stuff. Musicians and artists have been doing this from the beginning of humans becoming humans. You buy the guitar. You practice every day. At a certain point, you and the guitar become one. Now, that doesn't mean physically, but when I, as a musician, I hear the guitar player playing, I don't hear the guitar and then this guy playing the guitar. The soul of that guy playing the guitar and the guitar become one. How does that happen? Well, the guy gets Carlos Santana, whether you like him or you don't like him, is one of those kind of guitar players. Angel Romero, a classical guitar player, right?
Sure,
Two
sure.
opposite ends of the spectrum. Santana, and my friend Angel, who is a classical guitarist. You hear that guitar, you're hearing one. You don't know it's Carlos Santana. Yes, you know it's his style. You hear that. So this oneness happens in music all the time, and you look for it. Meaning, if you're a musician, you await those moments where you're transported, where you become one with the music. And let's say there's 90% of drudgery. There's practice. There's an audience that doesn't want to listen. There's 1,000 things that can go on. But 10% of the time, pick a number, 50%, 5%. My point is, it's like your marriage is really great. Then sometimes it's really bad. Well, those really great moments take you through the really bad moments.
You are.
Let's say that the really bad, really good moments are really small, and there's really a lot of really bad moments. But there's enough, 5%, 10%, which is not just good. It is that oneness. It's that miracle. It's that thing that possesses you that lets you do it because you can't get. It's a high that you can't buy. You can't get that kind of drug. You can't. It's not that it's illegal. It's you have to do things to get that. So when you play an instrument, when you do anything artistic, where you become one with it. So if it happens on the stage to someone performing, it can happen. Here's the thing about hypnosis, which is like vulgar compared to what we're talking about. We want to make what we're talking about spiritual.
Magic,
I'm going
to
take it into a nightclub.
Okay.
And this guy's going to make you cluck like a chicken. And you don't want to cluck like a chicken. But hypnosis, they say, is all self-hypnosis. You got to be the right guy that you really want to be hypnotized, or you have the character that permits this self-hypnosis. So when it happens just for a little bit of time, and you're out of control. You've absolutely lost control. And you like to think that the hypnotist guy is now in control of you, which is really not true. But this giving up, this giving away, this letting go is what we're looking for every time we perform. Every time we practice, by the way. If you want to put it spiritually, you should walk around life in that mode, right? The mystic guys, the aesthetic guys, the ascetic guys, rather. They are the Buddhists. They walk on another planet. They're just not of this world. They're 4 inches above the ground. So that what you're talking about, that mystical moment, should happen to every musician, could happen to every human being. I'm afraid it involves something that people don't want to hear, and that's a little bit of suffering. The suffering is the practice. You don't come out of the box. Very few people are Mozart. Very few people are the genius, and they don't have to do very much to bring it to fruition. Most of us have to practice, and nobody wants to practice. That relates to suffering. That hurts. That's terrible. That's like working on your marriage. Oh, she left the cap off the toothpaste. I hate when she does that. I hate that. I hate that about her. This suffering stuff that you have to let go of to get to the good part. And most people aren't in the game. They don't want to play the game.
Talking to Bill Conti here, who was just waxing poetic on the Jake Feinberg Show on Power Talk 1210. You just gave an incredible riff. You just riffed on that, and it's going to be transcribed, and it's powerful. Can you talk about a specific experience where that mysticism, I mean, there's only 2 letters that separate music and magic. And I mean, you've done a lot of iconic soundtracks and television shows. not necessarily always playing the instrument, but can you personalize that and talk about an experience that you were just describing?
For example, because of the blind practicing, meaning you practice to get better, and then you might be pretty good, and then it might come a little bit easier if you kind of know what you're doing. It's like going to a mechanic that doesn't know if he goes for the book and says, "Oh, let me look that up," then you're in the wrong place. I mean, you want the guy to go, "Oh, I know what that is. I can fix that." So I had a script that came to me, and it was about. It was a soap. It was. These are not deep things. It was just a soap. It was about oil people in Denver, and the name of the show was called Oil. And I just had the script, and I was going to do the pilot. And pilots, you never know whether they're going to go and they're not going to go. And at a certain point, the producer called me back and says, they just changed the name of the show. The network doesn't like oil. It doesn't have very much of a ring to it, so they want to change it to Dynasty. What do you think? So I said, I kind of like that.
Yeah, right.
Da-da-da, Dynasty, da-da-da. So I went to the piano, probably the only time in my life that I just went to the piano, and I wrote out the 32 bars that was the theme to Dynasty. And da-da-da was all over the place. Da-da-da, da-da-da-da. I mean, it was just everywhere because it had some kind of meaning to me. But music is a language, right? Let's not get confused. It's when you say magical and mystic. No. Music is a language, and it's a way. It's an emotional language it's for conveying emotions. It's communication. If all art is communication, music certainly is communication. As painting, as whatever. Painting is literal. Sculpture is literal. The most abstract of all the arts is music because you make of it what you want. It goes in your ear. I do what I do in me as a human, and I have these feelings that I can express musically. Now, that's what's the definition of a musician. If you want to hear the soul of anybody's music, when you hear their music, you're hearing their soul. Soul meaning that inner, whatever that inner stuff is. So I can speak the language of music.
Right.
Now, all musicians can speak the language of music. I just put what I have in me into the language of music. And in our humanity, it's like if I had a headache yesterday, I said, "Jake, I had a headache." And you go, "Oh, I know, I'm sorry." So take a pill. And so that's the human. Oh, I was in love. Oh, I want to go punch this guy in the face. I can make it to the end of this round. Oh, that's how I feel about that. Wow. Do you feel that too, Jake? Now, if you didn't feel that in my music, then I failed. Because not only was I trying to convey, I want to go punch somebody in the mouth, or some sense of power, or I don't want to fail, or I want to do it, I've got a 35-foot screen with a guy doing push-ups on it. In other words, I couldn't get more help than that for you to get that message. But in music, when that music's making you cry, and there are no pictures, and there's no little text that says, "This is where Lassie has a thorn in her paw," and "Oh my gosh, what's going?" No. This tune is playing, this piece of music, whatever that is, whoever's playing it, be it pop or Mozart, and you start to cry. Well, you just got it. You just got the message.
Okay, I'm gonna counter here because I think you're doing it. But when you were first creating in the studio, Harry and Tonto, Rocco, An Unmarried Woman, multiple TV series, the studio scene was bubbling at that time. You had a revolving door of musicians. I was originally connected to Bill Conti for my listening by the legendary percussionist Emil Richards. People were able to bare their souls. Real human beings were communicating in the language of music. How much has that been affected by the digitization of music, the lack of studio, the lack of humans really making music together in the same room today? as opposed to when you started out? Because what you're talking about is what was happening in Los Angeles in the 70s.
Well, that style changes for sure. The skirts are short, the skirts are long. Guys wear their hair long.
Right.
They don't wear their hair short. This guy wants an earring.
But a machine cannot bear their soul, is what I'm saying.
The machine definitely cannot bear their soul. But the idea that paint bears their soul, paint doesn't bear its soul, but the guy with the brush and the paint might make you look at something and go, ooh. So the guy with the instruments of hundreds of years ago or thousands of years were painting pictures that way. And today, that you say, well, I'm going to paint the picture now with a drum machine and a box that makes this sound. The one behind it is still doing it. It's not GarageBand. GarageBand can be playing, and the groove will be, oh, I like that groove. Oh, those changes are the changes from this tune. I like those changes. Those are nice changes. What makes you cry is never going to be the box. It's going to be the guy behind the box. Is it more difficult? Is it different? I go, yeah, it sure is. Not only that, there aren't even guys doing it anymore. There are teams of guys doing it. There's this guy that says, I think we should have a guitar playing. Well, what do we play? And the guy goes, plink, 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 something like that. I said, well, this other guy writes it down because he doesn't know how to write it.
Right.
And then the other guy that writes it down, he doesn't know how to put it out there for the guitar player. Another guy comes in and does. So it can go all the way from the individual guy sitting down with a guitar, a cello, or a piano, and playing his music, and it's literal. You see that. Oh, my God, there's a cello player. Man, does he play beautifully. I love that. Or a guy that has employed tens of people to get his concept of music onto the back of a film, and it's all electronic, and it's Chariots of Fire, and it's Vangelis, and there's absolutely nothing that we know of that we identify from the past, but we identify the soul of Vangelis through the electronic music that he's doing. Some people say, I like short skirts. I like to see your legs. Yeah, I don't like legs. I like ankles. I want it to be longer. So you can't really put down style. It's like fashion.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Wasn't it better? And I go, well, it was different. I don't know if it was better.
Well, I want to say, when I visited Emil in Toluca Lake, and you know, I think the other thing that's disconcerting to me is that musicians, performers, don't even have to be good at their craft anymore. Where the singer will sing a song in contemporary times, and she'll yell up to someone like you, a producer, and say, how did I sound? And Emil was saying, the producer will be like, you sounded terrible, but it's okay, because we can fix it.
We got auto-tune.
Right,
we can do it, baby.
Can you go back to how different it was when you were in the studio with guys like Emil, when you were trying to cut a track? Because Emil said that you might burn through a track, and everybody thinks they're done, but Emil knows he screwed up, and he's not going to be able to deal with that for the rest of his life. Hearing that, he says, sorry, guys, we got to play it again. Can you talk about like you said, the suffering that went on that obviously created incredibly great music?
Well, let's imagine that we have... It's easier with a group. Say you got a rock group, you got 4 guys in there, and today, each guy's got their own little music studio in their room, so the tracks are sent. Oh, I'll put the bass on by myself. I'll be in Hawaii. I got my studio. Send me the track. He puts the bass on. The drummer puts his on. So that's pretty esoteric. That is like, what is that? I can record with an orchestra in Berlin while I'm in L.A. Okay, let's not even go there. We can make it so cold and mechanical that you don't even want to know about it. But let's take it back to the point where we got 75, 80 musicians all in a room, and we're trying to get, and it's just a cue in a movie. This is not great stuff. This is just a cue in a movie. But every one of those musicians there is proud of what they do, and they are one of the best at what they do. What is that? They perform music. And the difference is, well, we talked about putting your soul in the music. You practice so much that the notes are not that important. It's the feeling. You can do a great job, and these collective souls of 75, 80 people are all going into a piece of music. And when they are all humming on the same frequency, the same tone, the same vibe, the same whatever that is, then you get what's called a very special performance. You go, oh my God, that's what gives you the thrills. Okay, so you do a take, and you've got non-musicians there that are paying you. So this is always the case, because there's always a producer, always a director, and someone who doesn't know. You'll finish the take, go through the piece of music, and the director of the music, let's assume they're positive. That was great. We love it. We just love everything. That's wonderful. Next cue. Keep on budget. Let's get to the next cue. And someone in the group says, I didn't do that. In measure 57, I blew it. Director says, I didn't hear it. We all heard it. We knew, and we take his integrity. This is a word that we use in practicing and in playing. Integrity is everything. He says, I could do it better. Now you're going to waste time. You're going to do it again because he thinks he could do it better. Now every musician thinks he could do it better all the time. But if they made a mistake, this is like a dishonorable thing to ignore his feelings and his integrity by moving. No. We'll just lose it in the mix. We'll cover it up. Now, I'm of the opinion that you can't do that. You will do another take because everyone will feel good about it. Forget about the money. We know about money. But this is making music at the highest level. So everyone, if someone will say, we need another one, and no one says why, but what they'll say, we need another one here. And you do it. You do it because of this respect that you have for each other and the music. That happens all the time.
Bill, I mean, you just kind of blew me out of the water today. I mean, I originally connected with Bill Conti, calling him on a Saturday morning, and it was way too early in the morning. But, we barely scratched the surface here, and I wanted to just, before I let you go in part one, can you talk about your concept of love? It is Valentine's Day weekend. How you feel like you have brought love to this world?
Well, the idea of love, of course, which is not everything, but might be the second most everything, is beneficent desire. It's a desire, right? I hope the very best for you. I want the very best for you. I want you to feel the very best that you can feel. And the very best that I can do in that humanity way, the same way that my rage is felt through music when you put on the Rocky thing or the strength that I feel about a certain subject. The love that I feel also should be honestly, not just honestly felt, but I have to make my point in music. I have to bring that out so that other people feel the love that I have. Now, love is a transaction. It's a give and a take. So the lover gives. And the transaction is completed when you take the love. The reciprocating love is different. The innocent love is different. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about the act of giving love. And not expecting love in return, by the way. So whether Beethoven loved or not, when we hear his music in its most beautiful, what I think the most beautiful, I feel the love that he must have had at some level for something, someone or some. You know what I'm saying? In other words, this giving is what it's all about. So if I get it right, if I'm writing a love song, you can fake it. You say, well, look, Barry Manilow wrote them like this. What's her name? Adele is singing like this about it. Taylor Swift sings love songs like this. I'm going to write one like that. Okay. But if I'm going to write from my heart, forgetting style, whether dresses are long, dresses are short, as a professional, I should be able to put that into words. As humans, our love on Valentine's Day is not saying I love you. It's doing loving acts for another human being. The saying is like, okay, you can say it too, but actually it's the doing.
Right.
If we love, we show love. So I hope that I have given some kind of my emotion through my music.
Well, I mean, yeah, and Bill, I'm going to connect with you again to do part 2 because we had a bunch of. I just didn't realize you were going to be so philosophical today. You really blew me out of the water. But you've done a lot of great work, man, and
thank you.
I had a ball, man. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be right back on the Jake Feinberg Show.